All right, so we are starting 1 Timothy 3 tonight. We'll probably finish. It's fairly short. And, we're thankful to Paul for writing down some structure for the church. To be honest, you can go back and look at what Jesus said. There's not a lot of information about structure of the church. He certainly um, talks about the church, references the church, assumes the church is there. But as far as structure, not much to go on. But Paul, in his um, pastoral epistles, so Timothy and Titus, um, he brings out some pretty good information about how to structure the church, who should be um, driving the church, of course, besides Christ. And so we start in verse 1, and he says, Here's a trustworthy saying: whoever aspires to be an overseer desires a noble task. Now, an overseer is the same thing as some translations will say bishop, others will say elder, others will say pastor. You could even say shepherd. So it's the leader of the local body. It's the leader of the church. Now, Timothy, it said, could have been over a number of churches. So he was overseer, bishop, elder, pastor over a number of churches, likely in the Ephesus area. All right.
Now, the word bishop would have actually been used.
Yeah, and one of the estimates, one of the thoughts that why bishop was used was because when those translations were written, the Catholic Church was the primary,
Okay.
was the big push.
Because the highest you can go in the Orthodox Church would be archbishop.
Okay. So
You have a bishop and an archbishop, just two, one of each.
Okay. So so who did you say is the highest then? The
Archbishop.
So that's kind of like archangel or archangel.
Archbishop.
Where they're following that.
He would be the head of the church.
Okay. So yeah, bishop, pastor, elder, whoever's in charge of the shepherd. We've also heard whoever's in charge of the church, and whoever aspires to do it, it's noble. It's a good thing. So you got to take care of our pastors. Look at 1 Thessalonians 5 specifically brings out that we really should respect those who are put in authority above us spiritually in that regard. So pastors, elders. All right. This is a long section, but it defines the requirements of a pastor, of an elder. And Kevin, would you read 2 through 7?
Very good. An overseer then must be above reproach, the husband of one wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, hospitable, skillful in teaching, not overindulging in wine, not a bully, but gentle and conscientious, free from the love of money. He must be one who manages his household well, keeping his children under control with all dignity. But if a man does not know how to manage his own household, how will he take care of the church of God? And not a new convert, so that he will not become conceited and fall into condemnation, incurred by the devil. He must have good reputation with those outside the church, so that he will not fall to disgrace and the snare of the devil.
All right. Verse 2, above reproach. One fella put it pretty well. We don't want to give the world a handle with which to criticize. We can all accept somebody who just flat wasn't a Christian and did non-Christian things for a long time and got converted. However, um, it should be some time frame between the time of conversion to I'm going to aspire to be a pastor. And yeah, just don't give the world a handle to criticize. Um,
Don't give them ammo,
don't give them ammo, probably better words. Yeah.
but you can't find ammo these days, so we'll have to use, yes.
Verse 4, interesting. Managing his own family. So he's going to have a perfect family, right?
Oh no, how preachers' kids are, right?
No,
Yeah, PKs. Oh.
And only one wife?
Ouch.
But you know what? He had to state that. Hey, husband with one wife, that's it.
One wife.
Well, obviously, we could probably think of some examples of how verse 4 has been taken out of context and meant and twisted to mean that your daughter has to sing in the choir, your son has to teach Sunday school. They each have to be able to sing and play piano and walk a certain way, dress a certain way, talk a certain way. But I certainly don't think that's what he's trying to get at. Is that you have to have your affairs in order. You have to have your family in order. And I don't think that means behavior, that your kids could behave in church. Like, I think that's speaking more to you have a stable family structure, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I love them, but this had to be written by Amish. Because that's what you just described as a good Amish family. Yes. And I love them too, man. They're good.
but what I see when I look at that is they say must manage his family. Okay. And having worked in management in the past, management doesn't mean that you're going to run everything perfectly. It means that you understand and when problems arise, how to deal with them correctly, how to discipline and look over your children. I mean, that's all part of managing. Everything is not going to be perfect. There's no way, no how.
Yeah.
But knowing how to manage and work through whatever situation comes up is of the essence.
Well, it says keeping the children under control with all dignity.
And I think that's an important point that as a father and the kids do something really off the charts, how does the father handle that? We see some parents and they just come unglued, out of control, beatings start, and just terrible situations. But we all know that major problems will happen in a household. Well, how does the potential pastor, handle the major problems? Does he remain under control? So
yeah.
I personally like the one with the picture where the black lady's looking over the pew and she has a spatula in her hand and she's looking at the kid and everything stops right there. It's like a church mouse. And she just turns around, gives a look, and doesn't have to do anything. It's amazing. Oh yeah.
I'm going to pop up something for you here. A really good comparison. And both of these, the sources are the pastoral epistles of Timothy and also Titus, and of course both written by Paul, but to do two different fellas, and how they correspond and why there's some differences. Not too sure. Maybe it's just what Paul had thought of at the time or what Timothy or Titus had needed at the moment. Not sure. But I thought that was a pretty interesting comparison. And so, and the differences between elder and deacon, we can leave that up. Do you guys both have, does everybody have other copies of the word in front of you besides what's on the screen?
Yeah, mine is separate.
Okay. All right, Kevin, you got something else to read from?
I can do it right now.
You can do it? Okay.
What are we, Timothy?
We're in, yeah, we're in Timothy's
Hey,
first.
quit laughing now.
Where are we at? Revelation? What was that?
Yeah, Mom.
You
So,
got to start at Genesis, Kevin.
We're stop it.
Keep going.
Do we want 3?
Say anything you want. He's got his glasses off.
You know what? I know why tigers eat their young. Okay, so Timothy, what? 1?
Timothy,
One,
First
three.
Timothy 3, yeah.
Okay, I'm there.
All right, cool. So anyway, as we read, and we're going to start reading on deacons right now, we can kind of look back and forth on the graphic and the table here and see what's being added and subtracted and differenced. So Ned, if you would read 8 through 10.
Sure. Deacons likewise must be dignified, not double-tongued, not addicted to much wine, not greedy for dishonest gain. They must hold the mystery of the faith with a clear conscience, and then let them also be tested first, and then let them serve as deacons if they prove themselves blameless.
All right. So the testing portion of it is the only kind of questionable area, at least to me. It's not really laid out, but it likely, according to what I understand, likely is having to do with some time. Again, somebody who's not a brand spanking new convert. Hey, we're going to make you a deacon, their actions and interactions, and that there is nothing against them. So those are, I guess, some testing related items. So if we look over at the graphic, we see elder on self-control, hospitable, able to teach, not violent but gentle, and that we can probably relate that to having their children. Not quarrelsome, not a lover of money, not a recent convert, have a good reputation with outsiders, not overbearing, not quick-tempered, loves what is good, upright, holy, disciplined, and then above reproach, adding deacons now. Husband of one wife. It's arguable on exactly what that means in some circles. Temperate for both, respectable for both, not given to drunkenness in both, manages his own family well in both, sees that his children obey him in both, does not pursue dishonest gain in both, holds to the truth both, sincere and tested. So I'm pretty sure that the implication is that if somebody's looking to be a pastor and he's not sincere, I'm pretty sure that doesn't mean that it's okay because it's not listed here. I'm pretty sure that's also a requirement. And then, of course, the pastor would also need to be tested as well. So it's just not listed. It's assumed. Let's just say it's assumed. Do we agree with that, or is there an argument about that, you think?
Untested?
Yeah. Do you think just because it's not mentioned, that's my point here, just because it's not mentioned under elder or pastor requirement to be sincere and tested, do you think that it's not a requirement? If you're on a pastor search committee and you say, well, this guy's not very tested, and he's not sincere, but that's not on the list, I think we'll hire him, What do you think?
It's invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you're not looking for a private, you're
Mm.
looking for a general.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just don't know it yet, but you're looking for a general.
Yeah.
Well, and it certainly fits within a lot of other, it fits within the framework. While it's not specifically defined, there's a lot of things, a lot of questions you would want to ask that would probably fall into one of those categories, you know. And maybe I think you're right in saying that it was probably assumed that, hey,
Mhm.
before you go and appoint an elder or pastor, like,
Yeah.
let's talk about his testimony. Let's test his faith a little bit, you know, and get through that.
Yeah, it's kind of like buying a software package. That's what I do a lot. So you got a software package, you got the standard level, then you've got the gold level, and then you've got the premium level, you know, and the gold level has all the functions of the standard level and some, and then you add on. So, you know, as the package goes up. So that's kind of the way I look at that. All right, so I beat that dead horse. We'll go back to scripture, always safe. 11 is interesting. I'll read 11. And I chose this version very specifically. What are we on? New American Standard, I think. 11. Women must like. Now we just got done talking about deacons, and we're not done talking about deacons. And he throws in there in 11. Women must likewise be dignified, not malicious gossips, but temperate, faithful in all things. And then goes back to talking about the deacons in 12. Some versions, and I want somebody else to read verse 11 in any other version than than American Standard Version.
This is ESV.
Good.
It uses their wives.
Yeah.
Talking about deacons' wives, likewise must be dignified. Otherwise, it's almost identical.
Yeah.
It says sober-minded instead of temperate.
Who else has another version? And
Mine
that's
says, even so must their wives be grave,
yeah.
not slanderers, sober, faithful in all things.
No, that's King James, isn't it?
Yes.
Yep. What do you have, Doug? You got ESV, don't you?
Yes, yeah.
So I looked through a bunch of versions. American Standard Version read just women, just started out with women must likewise be dignified. So you got to realize that a lot of churches don't think that women can be deacons, and a lot of churches do. And it all comes down to a translation and understanding of translation. So in many translations, it says, and their wives, the deacons' wives, must also blah, 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 blah. So they're evaluating the deacon and his wife. So I went back to the Greek, and the Greek, the reason I chose the version I did to read tonight was because it was the closest to the Greek. The New American Standard Bible seemed to hit it pretty good. The Greek, remember, it's word for word, so the logic is a little bit different. Women, likewise, must be dignified, not slanderers, clearly minded, faithful in all things. And that reads pretty good. So it doesn't say anything about wife of the deacon in the Greek, at least the Greek translation that I've got on my handy dandy here, nor the New American Standard. So it really implies that if you have a deacon and she's a woman, these are the characteristics that she needs to have. Most all the focus is on a male deacon, but leaves the possibility that there could be a woman deacon. And
Through number 11 in there.
Huh?
Through number 11 in there.
You're 11 in there, just right
Absolutely.
smack dab in the middle. So it's interesting. I remember when we were setting up deacons at 4 Points, And Chad did a very good sermon on here's how we perceive it. Here's how we're going to run with it. And he did a fantastic job. And we do have women deacons. So, but he defined it very well. I think it may still be somewhere in a podcast. I don't know, but it was a long time ago. All right. 12 and 13. Doug, it is up to you, sir. Unless there's any other comments about women deacons.
Well, I was just the thing that caught me was in your American Standard Version.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they say it in there is like saying that women are gossipists, but men aren't.
Women are what?
Gossips.
Gossips.
I don't think that's exclusive, but
Keep that under your breath there, Doug.
It mentions that. It says something about that. It kind of does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Women must likewise be dignified, not malicious gossips. It doesn't say that about men.
That's a good point.
Yeah, honey, that's Doug saying that.
No, I'm
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
some of the best gossips I've ever met were men. But I mean, it's just funny that that's the way it's worded there,
It is. It
So,
is.
well, and again, it kind of goes back to like I think the Bible talks about gossip, men gossiping elsewhere. So
Yes.
it's not an exclusive list.
right.
In
That's
this
been going on for a long time, hasn't it?
yeah,
Yes, it has.
in this passage, it does single out women there. And I mean, but I think you can't just look. I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. Other than, I think we're not supposed to gossip too, and that's found elsewhere. I guess that's all I was going to say.
Yeah.
But and the
that's
thing
a
the
key
thing that I
bound.
want to point out is that in all the versions we read, that American Standard Version is the only one that reads it that way that we've seen.
And we know that the American Standard Version is the most concrete as far as its connection to the Greek. In fact, that's why I don't read it every day, because it's a little choppy, to read. It doesn't read as fluid as like an NIV or an ESV.
Okay.
But it's very interesting, and it's very tied. It's very tied to the original language. So
Right.
just an interesting
Okay.
point, fellas. Just an interesting point. All right, Doug, 12 and 13, please, sir.
Let deacons each be the husbands of one wife, managing their children and their own households well. For those who serve well as deacons gain a good standing for themselves and also great confidence in their faith that is in Jesus Christ.
Okay. That's kind of a cool thing that deacon, a servant, can, because that's what deacon means, can obtain a good standing. And that's encouraging for somebody to desire to be a deacon. So, all right. 14. 14 and 15. We're to you, Kevin.
Okay. I am writing these things to you, hoping to come to you before long. But in case I'm delayed, I write so that you will know how one should act in the household of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and support of the truth.
All right, so he's relating it to a structure, a household structure. So, can you imagine being Timothy? He was sent away or left there at Ephesus. Okay, do it.
Yeah.
We've done church before. I don't know what you're talking about, And so Paul has given him a structure with which to work. And so that's awesome. So this last statement here is interesting, and they're thinking it's from a hymn, a portion of a hymn that they used to sing. I don't know why they said it's a portion, but they think it's a portion of a hymn they used to sing. And Ned, I will ask you to read all of 16 then.
Sure.
And
Great indeed.
mind, while you're doing it, if you would put it to some music, that'd be awesome. We appreciate it.
You mean I could kind of sing song it?
Yeah, perfect. Thanks.
All right. We're going to sing this to the tune of Amazing Grace.
Excellent.
I'm just kidding. Great indeed, we confess, is the mystery of godliness. He was manifested in the flesh, vindicated by the Spirit, seen by angels, proclaimed among the nations, believed on in the world, and taken up in glory.
Amen. I can certainly see how that would be a song. It said it was in A-B format. I'm not a poet, but that's what they said. So I kind of see that. A little sing-songy. So, and I didn't get the tune. If you said it, I didn't get it. So, you know. But that is chapter 3 there, fellas. And it's pretty good. Pretty
Yeah,
good.
Pretty
absolutely.
good. I'm impressed.